Hello and a very warm welcome back to the garden. It's time to continue the What to Sow series for self-sufficiency for the month of May. May is kind of, the world is your oyster if you're a gardener at May. Basically everything, but tomatoes, peppers and aubergines can be sown in May. Even things that might feel a little bit late, more often than not, they very much catch up. And so essentially, it's a good way, a good bit of advice to start with, is to sow the crops that you enjoy eating. You know that you're going to grow them. But there are a few important considerations if you're looking at feeding yourself for as long as possible that you should start taking. So a real big focus for May, it's so important to get this right and not miss it because June will be too late for a lot of these, is winter vegetables. Winter vegetables work really well because from around October, November through to February, March, even into April, they just sit in the ground waiting to be harvested. It's nice to just have so much fresh food that is available. So parsnips, swede, leeks, these are all absolutely beautiful and delicious winter vegetables to grow. Swede, also known as rutabaga, if you're watching from the United States. Now, in terms of brassicas, you've got a lot of options as well. Obviously, you've got kale, you've got cabbage. I'll come on to cabbage in a bit because I also want to mention purple sprouting broccoli. This is more of a hungry gap crop. So from a hungry gap crop, did a measurement of one single harvest off a single plant, even though it will produce more shoots. That was 350 grams. You can also eat the leaves of purple sprouting broccoli, and I measured it for the same plant, the leaves, stripped off the tougher kind of part of the leaf of the stem, so it's just the edible weight, and that was just over 250 grams of food, which is around 3 portions of your 5 a day if you had that over 3 days. So that's quite a significant amount of food from a single plant. For cabbages right now, of course you can sow cabbages for your autumn harvest, but cabbages for winter is particularly important on the winter veg spectrum. I would put a big recommendation for one of my favourite varieties, which is Austrian tree cabbage. It's a cabbage that doesn't create a head. Instead, you harvest the leaves and you chop them up and treat them like cabbage. It's a beautiful plant. You can kind of treat it as a short-lived perennial. If you remove the flowering shoots on the second year, it will continue going for a little bit more. And it is really, really delicious. It is such a beautiful cabbage taste. I recommend everyone grow it. And it's also useful to have a cabbage that grows a little bit like a kale, which has a taller, clearer stem, because it then allows you to grow another crop underneath it, be it a cover crop to just protect that ground under winter, to get those root exudates going out, ready for the following spring when you can start planting other things underneath it, perhaps your salads, whilst that Austrian tree cabbage will continue to provide food. And of course, like all of the other brassicas, their flower shoots are also edible. Moving on to other types of vegetables that you can sow and plant in May. Your main crop, potatoes. If you watch this channel, you know I'm going to say sarpomeras because of their incredible blight resistance. I've just received a 25 kilo bag of seed potato of them, and so we're just doing quite a hands-off approach where the trick with growing potatoes in a self-sufficient manner is to not spend too much money on compost and to not grow them in tubs. It's something I've done before, but I've realized just it doesn't add up if you're trying to save money. Where it does add up is if you've got a patch of ground that's kind of bare, you can turf and flip the layers. You can plant your potatoes, you can put down a layer of like seaweed, hay, grass clippings, leaves, etc., and start to build this up. Take inspiration from the Ruth Stout method as well, and it's a great way to grow a load of potatoes. Yes, the harvests aren't going to be quite as good as compost, but the costs are second to none. Essentially, it's your time and the seed potato, and you're mulching the ground. So by the time it's the second year, you've actually got really fertile ground where you can grow other crops. It's a nice way to open up more area of land for growing food by growing a bulk such as your sapomira potatoes, which you can leave in the ground and harvest them throughout the winter months as well. Another key category is the whole squash and cucurbits. So I'm a massive fan of cucumbers. They just taste delicious. They're a great way to elevate any kind of salad. You can grow them outside, you can grow them in polytunnels. To grow them outside here in the UK, my favourite variety is Market More. Winter squash is also a really good one because of its storage capabilities. So pumpkins, usually you can store them up until about Christmas time, but if you're growing something that's more like a blue Hubbard or a jumbo pink banana squash, which I've mentioned before, well, we've still got a couple in storage that look absolutely fine at the moment. So get your winter squash in. They're really useful for feeding you because of their size and how good they are for storing. You don't need any kind of special storage solution for them. May is also a lovely month for sowing your carrots. Carrots can be a little bit tricky to germinate. Usually it's because when you sow them, you're giving them a water, but then it dries out. Carrots and parsnips are really fussy about that. So you can use the plank method for germinating the seedlings. Remove the plank once the seedlings have come through. The plank stops the evaporation. Carrots are really productive, like per square metre or per square foot when you grow them in rows, and they do sit quite well in the ground. If you suffer from carrot root fly issues, then you might want to erect some kind of insect-proof netting or barrier around, or grow resistant varieties like Flyaway and Resist-A-Fly. Obviously, peas, beans, you know, the whole legumes. May is a great month for sowing any of your climbing beans, your dwarf beans, peas, field beans. Just choose the things that you like and grow them. You might want to consider more on the drying beans, the ones that you can dry and store over winter to use for stews. But yeah, I think the trick for legumes is to grow the ones that you like, because I think there are some beans out there or some varieties that are a little bit overrated or quite easy to get bored of. So just consider quantities for that category. I would also say that pak choy is a beautiful crop to sow in May. Pak choy, it grows really quickly and it adds a really nice crunch. It's a nice texture that separates it from other leafy greens like spinach and lettuce. So pak choy, it grows really fast. If you've suffered from pest issues with pak choy in the past, grow purple pak choy. That seems to fare much better against things like flea beetle and slugs from my experience. There's something great about the colour purple. And another crop that I want to mention is fennel. Bulb fennel, not this fennel, which is a beautiful herb fennel that you can use for decorating, for garnishes, for drinks, for herbal teas, but bulb fennel, it is so nice just roasted. Again, it grows fairly quickly, it adds beautiful texture and visuals to your garden, and it is so tasty. So I'm kind of putting that in because that's a real kind of special crop in my heart. But if you've never tried bulb fennel before, May is a great month to sow it. Just make sure in June and July you give it lots of water. You might want to mulch around it with some grass clippings if it gets particularly dry. But last year I grew it very successfully during the drought, thanks to mulching it with grass clippings. And of course, if we're thinking about bulk and saving money, salads are going to come under that. They're quite expensive when you buy them in the shop, mainly because of them being quite perishable. And so any salad that you like, lettuce, rocket, spinach, even growing baby chard, and also any of the annual herbs to eat alongside that. One thing I do recommend with salads though is to do succession planting, so you can make sure that you spread out the harvest and that you don't end up with lots of lettuce that has gone bolted and bitter. This video right here shows you all about succession planting, how to utilize it with your self-sufficiency strategy. So give that a watch, because that's going to help you extend the cropping period for the majority of the crops that you grow in your garden, so you can continue expanding just how much you can feed yourself.